Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Virgo, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of September 2025. I hope you're well and happy birthday to you. For we are in your season right now. I'm using the Tarot of the Divine for you today. And before we begin, if the reading resonates with you and you would like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. The link for that will be down in the description box below. You can come join me over on Selfie for that, or alternatively you can come over to Circle, benefit of which being you can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost beyond the membership fee. Which includes weekly energy readings and things like that as well. Plus we have a really quite magnificent community in there and the conversations are excellent. We also run classes. If that's something you're interested in, the link for that is in the description box below. Well, now I've stopped shuffling and we're on the Hermit, I think now is a good time for me to turn the camera around. I'll shuffle that back in as well and see what's going on with you. It's kind of a big month. I mean, it is your birthday month after all. But we've just had a big new moon in Virgo, and at the end of this month we will be having an eclipse in your sign. Nothing to feel worried about, I don't think. You know, we're embracing flow, and there are a lot of things that are being left behind this month. And I'm speaking as someone whose ninth house is ruled by Virgo, who also has like Saturn and Jupiter sitting in there. I'm looking forward to letting go of incessant self-flagellation where perfectionism is concerned. So I've got my fingers crossed that that's what the eclipse is going to do for me. But you know, there's always positives to these. Anyway, let's have a look and see what's going on with you. Could I have 3 cards, please, for Virgo? Does Virgo need to know about where Virgo is right now? Cards flying out right, left and centre here. We've got the Temperance card on its side, and do you know what? I think I'm probably going to take that along with this Knight of Cups. Ooh, interesting combo, since both of those have stuck out. Put that where you can see it. What about current energy, please, for Virgo? What's Virgo need to know? Ooh, okay, we have 3 of Swords. Don't panic about that. And what about what's coming to towards Virgo for September, please? Thank you. We have the Justice card. I like this. I like this very much because there is a journey towards balance that is happening. We have the 10 of Wands at the bottom of the deck, and I think of all the 10s that you could have got for this month as an underlying energy, I think this is a really good one. I mean, I have a slightly peculiar take on the 10 of Wands and the 10 of Swords anyway. I actually welcome them when I see them coming in, because they represent a peak experience, right? A peak experience that in some way or another will be closing out shortly. But in the case of the 10 of Wands, it is the recognition of those ways in which we have burdened ourselves, coming to a state of completion. Now, often that is accompanied with a, because I just can't fucking take it anymore. You know, something's got to give, and something quite likely will give this month, Virgo. But at the same time, it is replaced by the Ace of Wands, because, you know, everything about the tarot is cycles within cycles. And so, you know, although the 10 of Wands can sometimes be uncomfortable, I really do think that that is a transitory state that is navigated really quite quickly by you. And knowing that the 10 always leads then to the Ace, we've got room for a little bit more creativity coming through. Things that have been unbalanced, and that very much is the message of this month, I think. So we've got the Temperance card on its side here. We've got a Libra card here, which is also very interesting, albeit Saturn in Libra. And then we go over to, you know, Libra here, the ultimate card of balance, if you will, within the tarot. There's something of a levelling out this month, which I think is probably you're more than ready for, or certainly if you're not right now, you will be by the time it happens. You'll be like, you know. So let's get the Waite Smith out here for some clarifiers. I'll give this a shuffle. I'll give these a proper shuffle because, yeah, nah. Anywho, tell me about the Knight of Cups and the Temperance card, please. Thank you. We have the moon. Yeah, well, that would make a lot of sense. Oh, goodness me. We have the Tower reversed. Interesting. And let's get one more. Oh, fucking Judgment reversed and the King of Wands. All right. Hold fire on that. Tell me about the Three of Swords. Why is that here? We have the Wheel of Fortune. Interesting. The Wheel of Fortune's been coming out for a few signs this month. I'm really not surprised to be seeing this coming out for you. King of Swords in reverse. Tell me about Justice. Ace of Cups on its side. And one last card, please, for Virgo. The Hermit. Touche. We've got the Nine of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck. Now, although on the face of it, this may look like quite a disheartening reading, because there are some of the so-called negative cards on the table, and everything's feeling a little bit disordered and a little bit confusing. I do think that this is the path to that Ace of Wands that we were talking about before. It may not show itself up as a distinct and present force where you're like, oh, you know, this is the path forward. This is where I'm going to go. I'm going to follow my passion. I'm going to do things. I'm going to change my behavior. I'm going to do all the things that we associate with the Ace of Wands. There's something kind of sticky that you're working through here that feels to me like it's a very, very necessary foundation for what comes next, because ultimately the endings of any given situation are the foundations of what comes next. And particularly if that's working through where bits of our lives, bits of our internal states are feeling very cluttered, sticky, muddy, unclear, all that sort of thing, right? So the Nine of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck in this deck here feels like it's a perfect accompaniment to the Ten of Wands, because although, you know, we don't have two tens, we're not talking about a double ending, if you will, here. We are talking about ways in which you are burdened kind of coming to completion so that you might more readily put your hands on those resources that are actually yours. I mean, let's not forget that the Nine of Pentacles is a Virgo card as well, right? So it feels like, to be honest, that you would feel better if there was a roller coaster energy to this. It was like up and down and up and down. There would be some, at least some clarity in the linearity of that. And we absolutely don't have a linearity, because it's not about moving forwards. It's about stopping this violent rocking from side to side that seems to be going on for you, right? And ultimately, when we're talking about South Node energy, it's very reductive to say it is simply that which we are leaving behind. Now, if you listen to certain philosophical takes on the energy of the South Node, it is actually the more spiritual of the two versus the North Node, and it's more about the balancing. It's recognizing, yes, that there are certain things to be left behind, but it is also about putting what has been learned, all the wisdom and all that kind of thing, in the right place so that it forms part of your foundation moving forwards. It is not that everybody in the world is, dealing with the Virgo part of their chart and going, well, everything in here is absolute toss and I don't want to have anything to do with it anymore. It's like there are some really profound spiritual lessons in here. What have I learned that is useful, and where can I put it in the right place in my head? Where can I put it in the right place in my perspective? So that the wisdom comes through, but the pain and the disruption and the dysregulation and the imbalance doesn't, right? Like I said, because everything about this spread seems to me to be focused on the idea of balance. We see it here in Temperance, Three of Swords, in the Justice card. It's not about external balance. It's not about balancing your checkbook or anything like that. It's about internal regulation. And I think this is really, really important for you. However, I can see where there are sticky points. So I'm going to stop rabbiting generally and speak specifically to the cards here, because I think that they're talking about a lot of things that are very, very helpful. So, broadly, we're looking at past, present, future. But this recent energy here could be this morning when you got out of bed, or it could be as much as 6 weeks, back from here, more or less, kind of encapsulating the energy. And it has been difficult, Virgo. I don't think there's any other way of putting it, really. When the Temperance card is in the upright, it's a really beautiful energy, and it can talk about divine guidance, divine orchestration, right place, right time, things just working out right. But it does talk about profound healing as well, right? And it's the balance of having been through something really, really difficult and having found our peace and our healing in response to that, right? Finding a nice equal balance with ourselves. It's about temperate and moderate behaviour as well, actually. But the fact that it's on its side means, I keep coming back to this word dysregulation. I feel like there's something that's been feeling highly dysregulated in your life, and it could well be, and this feels very, very strong, the sense of control that you have had over aspects of it. It's almost like everything just keeps imploding and, bringing up things that feel difficult to deal with. Now, this Knight of Cups here is Pisces energy. Pisces is your opposite sign in the zodiac, so this is currently where the North Node is sitting. So everybody's feeling this big Piscean pull, right? But there's a kind of hungry ghost element to that, right? Yeah, there's an insatiability with the North Node where we can completely overdo things, right? And so the fact that we've got this Pisces energy that is pulling on you, and for some of you, there is a very distinct message that you are trying to leap to forgiveness about something before you have fully worked through something internally, right? You haven't healed yet, but you're trying to jump to forgiveness. And that's admirable, but it's the wrong way round to do things. Why do I say that? Well, because forgiveness is a state that is holistic, and it will leap forwards when you have done the work to regulate yourself and balance yourself about, everything that you think of. You can't force yourself to do it, and if it is forced, it's not real. Maybe some of you are trying to force yourself to be more accepting of things, right? You're trying to forgive yourself for whatever. But because that's not an entirely real state, there's part of you that's still fighting back against it. Now, whichever way you look at it, Temperance says there's more healing to be done. Right? We are not yet in a healed state. We have not yet conquered everything that requires conquering. And I would say to some extent there's because there's some information missing at this point, and that's okay. That's absolutely fine. But be aware that this Piscean influence on everything that you are is likely to make you feel disrupted and dysregulated, because the lesson is never what you think it is. It's always something slightly sideways of it, right? That's certainly been my thing. So we've got the Moon card here. Right? And the moon, anything seen by the moon generally tends to lack detail, right? So we've got another aspect of missing detail of things, right? It's big picture landscapes where the detail is missing. We can't see the path moving forwards. We can only see the outline of what is standing in front of us, and it can seem immense. It can seem like it's frankly too difficult, or sometimes we just ignore that and go, metaphorically speaking, we're trying to leap straight to forgiveness. We're trying to leapfrog over mountains that are sitting in front of us, which I can understand why you wouldn't necessarily want to engage with that, but at the same time, the path is always through, right? So everything has been unclear. Even though you seem to have been trying to move in the right direction, everything's felt misaligned. It hasn't felt like it's really been flowing the way that it should if everything was working as it should. And we've got the Tower and the Judgment card both showing up in reverse. Now, the fact that the King of Wands is here as well, and he's looking at it, feels like, Virgo, you feel like you've been stuck between a rock and a hard place. The King of Wands is always interested in action, and timely action. I think he has a better sense of timing than pretty much any of the other kings, because he knows when is the right time to act, right? And this is the benefit of experience. But sometimes the King of Wands can be too caught up with the idea that action must be taken. And the thing is here, with the Tower in reverse and the Judgment card in reverse, it's almost like you haven't really had a clear sense of what action need be taken. Now, the Tower card in reverse feels to me like an absolute resistance to calling in some kind of crisis, which feels like it would be a direct result of your actions. It's kind of like, well, I'm trying to make a decision that is avoiding, there we go, I found the word, avoiding the likelihood of drawing the Tower in, which would further disrupt what has been feeling disrupted for the longest time. But in doing so, there's kind of decisions that have been dodged, that perhaps you may not even be aware of at this time. I mean, the way that I put the cards initially was like this, and it was like the view of the King of Wands was sailing straight over the top of the Tower in the Judgment card and looking directly at the moon and saying, well, actually everything's really confusing. I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing. I can see some, big silhouette, but where's the fucking path? I can't find the path. Now, the moon is also about the subconscious for me. It is the workings of the subconscious and the things that we aren't necessarily that aware of. Now, it could be that you have been looking at those quite distinctly, but in doing so, there's been some sort of bypassing of a decision that you have not wanted to make because of some sort of potential for crisis and catastrophe that may have come off the back of it. The problem is then that your internal balancing thing has not had the opportunity of doing what it's wanted to do. And I think it's just really interesting the way that I put those cards. Even the moon was a little bit obscure as well, actually. So everything's just felt confusing. I just want to pull this other deck up here. Let's just have a look. I mean, one way of looking at this, Virgo, is that you have been so intent on looking within and trying to fix what is within, and maybe, very much trying to find this point of forgiveness with yourself for something, whatever that is, that you've essentially bypassed what is right in front of you, unable to see it, or representations of it in front of you. Tell me, that's Tower and Judgment reversed. Four of Cups reversed. Interesting. So yeah, look at this. These are all cups. We've got the Ten of Cups at the bottom of the deck. We've got the Three of Cups, which is representing emotional support networks and people who are close to you. It's not necessarily your closest one-on-one relationships like your spouse or your, children or your parents or a boyfriend, girlfriend, that sort of thing. It's a wider network than that. It is the people that surround you. But here we've got the Four of Cups and the Ten of Cups. It's almost like you've lost your sense of what you are. Now, does it stop there? I don't know if it does stop there. It's like you've lost yourself in a crowd, Virgo. Because the Four of Cups is about gratitude for me. That's how I read this, right? It's about gratitude. And it's interesting when we're coming up with other cards that are talking about other people, and yet you seem to be in this conflicted state and rather dysregulated state, pushing for forgiveness, pushing for gratitude, when you don't necessarily feel those things. And I think there's been a remarkable amount of self-examination that you've been trying to do to work out why you don't feel those things. That is all focused on, it must be something wrong with you, it must be a problem with you. And that's not to say that it's not, but I think that perhaps you might be missing something here. And I said this before, I feel like there's been information that's been missing. And because you're trying to force yourself into being a certain way before you are ready, because that certain way will just flow when it's time. It feels like it's been making the problem worse. And while this problem is getting worse and you are feeling more and more imbalanced and less like you are who you need to be for everybody around you, you've lost sight of some bigger questions in your life that are asking for answers. And it's like a whole identity crisis that's going on. Now, what's interesting for me is that seems like a really strong point of tension that is arriving in your life, kind of causing a little bit of friction, which is to say that it's not that you're not who you're supposed to be. It is that you are in a state of transition right now. Now, I mean, we'll read into the other cards in a second, but there's a forcing here, Virgo, that doesn't need to happen. You seem to be stuck in a self-flagellatory loop where there's an idealized version of who you are and what you are to other people that you feel like you're falling short of. And what you're aiming for, really, is not the idealized version of yourself, but finding a way to accept the less than perfect version of yourself that is in a state of transition. I said the lesson's not what you think it is, it's always something slightly sideways of it, because that's where the leaps in consciousness move forward. I can actually feel the Three of Swords here. And it's a natural consequence of this self-flagellation. Now, this Three of Swords in the current moment is really interesting. And I shall tell you why it's really interesting. Because the Tower of the Divine is based on folklore and mythology from all over the world. And this is about the crane's wife. And so we are taking the meaning of the Three of Swords and we're kind of shifting it sideways in a way that is so fucking perfect for Virgo right now, right? Because let's see if I can remember the story that sits behind this. In some way or another, and I can't remember how, the crane's wife was hurting herself over and over again in order to help Mr. Crane. Now, while she was doing that in the spirit of service for someone that she really, really cared about, she lied to him about the fact that she was doing it. And the sorrow came from Mr. Crane in terms of recognizing how much his wife was hurting herself. But also in the fact that she was not moving with honesty with him. It's almost like, to some extent in the story, at least anyway, like her sin was the greatest because of the lack of honesty with it, even though it was coming from a really good place. Now, the reason that I say it seems like remarkably on point for you, Virgo, here, is because the crane's wife was wanting to be of service. And I think genuinely you are wanting to be of service, but you seem to be trying to force yourself into something that actually is hurting you. And I think if you sat with it a minute, you'd be like, dysregulation is real. The feeling is very real that I am not being what I need to be for, whoever or whatever, or the important people in my life, but humanity as a whole. Like, it feels like you're in a state of total fucking overwhelm, to the extent that you are not recognizing how much that action is hurting yourself. Now, the Wheel of Fortune is here, and like I said, that's come up for a couple of other signs. I suspect we're actually going to see it showing up quite a bit once I've got through all of the signs for September. But remember that we were talking right at the beginning about the notion of burden, right? Where you are putting way too much pressure on yourself for something. And that the whole point of this month for you here, or the whole point of the energy and the discomfort that you have been in up until this point, having to kind of reach some sort of peak experience where you go, oh, fucking hell, Either fuck it and you put it down, or oh my God, I realise how I've been making life really burdensome for myself, in order that you might put your hands more readily on the resources that are actually yours, right? And be independent and all that kind of stuff. Be authentic, right? Be authentic. The Wheel of Fortune seems to be pushing this, giving an extra level of intensity to it, so that the lesson is learned intensely, but much more swiftly than it might be anyway, because the state that you're in, Virgo, is actually relatively unsustainable, right? And I don't think that you are you know, literally whipping yourself in public or anything like this. I mean, obviously I'm talking metaphorically, and it's very much an internalized state. But the Three of Swords, although it represents things that we don't like, which is pain and discomfort and hurt and, you know, deception in some ways, right? Because when the Three of Swords comes along, it's those three swords spearing an emotional little bubble that presents us with the truth. It represents Saturn in Libra, which is an exalted state, right? It's peak truth. Now, our discomfort with that peak truth shows us where the potential for healing exists. I mean, you're struggling with this Temperance card. You're struggling with this, you know, this sense of internal balance, or this sense of balancing anything. And I said from the outset that I did not feel like you had all of the information yet. And I wonder if this peak discomfort is you driving yourself to a point where you realise that it's unsustainable, and that popping of the bubble then is forcing you to look at things in a different way. It's forcing you to do things differently. The Wheel of Fortune is amplifying that energy to a really uncomfortable level. But we have the King of Swords in the reverse. Now that represents the sign of Aquarius, and generally speaking, it speaks to a decision-making process, right? Something that potentially has been avoided over here because we've been trying to work out shit. We've missed the obvious bits that are in front of us, you know, trying to force a situation where actually the message might have been a little bit more like, can you be nice to yourself? Can you actually give yourself a little bit of a break? And the decision-making process, I wonder if it is the recognition that you have not had your hands on all of the information because you missed the bits where you were hurting yourself, Virgo, metaphorically, hopefully, causing yourself pain, to try and be what you think that you should be rather than what you are. I mean, that's always going to lead to a disrupted and dysregulated state. And I think you're experiencing that peak discomfort, but maybe starting to see the truth of the matter as it's emerging. That's King of Swords. Right, so we've got the Two of Cups now showing up, more Cups energy, and the Nine of Wands, with the Five of Wands at the bottom of the deck here. Now this is about internal conflict, right? Disruption for sure. Just put that over there. Now, the presence of the Two of Cups, the Nine of Wands, and the Ten of Wands together suggests to me that everything that I've said so far applies, but additionally, there is an issue of boundaries here. There's an issue of what you do and what you expect yourself to do and what you're trying to force yourself to do. And the question that I would be asking you to ask yourself right now is, if someone that you cared about came to you with the way that you're talking about yourself to yourself right now and expressed this verbally to you, Would you think that this was an acceptable way for them to think? Because I think the answer would be hands down no. We're talking about standards of perfection that you're trying to attain that you would not expect from anyone else. And that, you know, that attention to detail is definitely one of your, it's a strong suit with you, right? But it has to be expressed healthily, and I feel like there's some aspect of this that is really not being expressed healthily for you. And so you can't make decisions that make your life better because you haven't been working with all of the information. And the information is that you are holding yourself to a different standard to everybody else. And one that has failure almost baked into the equation. And the problem with that is that then you're attracting more and more discomfort in at a point where the energies are very, very intense. Is that a problem? I'm not sure it is a problem, but like, I don't think that you recognize the dual standards that you've set for yourself versus what you've set for other people. And if I may, Virgo, it seems like you've been trying to speedrun a process that actually requires a little bit of time, right? Even Saturn in Libra will tell us that, right? The idea of time and limitations and the edges of things, right? And then in the sign of Libra, right? Time will balance out a lot of these things. So why are you trying to speedrun it? Because you're hurting yourself in the process, and you would not accept this behavior from somebody else. Like, I feel a deep desire here from you to be of service. You want to show up as the best version of yourself that you can be. Yeah, touche. That is admirable trait. But the idealized end result, that point of perfection that for you represents the end point that you are trying to achieve, is not the point of the lesson. The point of the lesson is, can you give yourself time? Can you be compassionate to yourself in an ongoing process and lose the perfectionism that is associated with that? Because ultimately I do believe there is something here that is jarringly inauthentic about what you are trying to achieve. Now, I don't want that to sound like, you know, deep criticism, because I don't actually mean it like that. I just thought, I wondered the extent to which it is possible to be authentic and then authentically show up in a state of service for other people when you are literally cutting off your own feathers for the benefit of someone else. The problem is never quite what you think it is. It's always something that is sideways from that. And I've been working with this idea, certainly for the last, I don't know, probably 6 weeks, Mercury retrograde, right? It was, and it wasn't something I started off with, but I started to notice a pattern in the way that I was thinking. It was kind of bringing everything back to first principles and looking at the things that I felt were non-negotiable and going, yeah, but what if they were? What if that thing that was set and rigid actually wasn't at all, right? And giving some room for flexibility and changing the way that I think about certain things that I consider to be intractable and immovable, right? And in your case, that would be the perfectionalized, idealized end result of being, right? And even end result of particular decision-making processes and all these kind of things, right? And in giving myself a bit of flexibility to move around those things that I thought were rigid and inflexible, I've started to see that there's a very different way of thinking about all of them baked into that. And suddenly ways in which I felt like hurting myself was the only way that things could move forwards. I started to see that that was a product of the very damage itself that required the healing, right? And I'm seeing exactly that same thing here with you. And I don't feel like this is an ego state of I must be perfect that's going on here. Well, the ego will certainly come into it somewhere, but it's not about self-aggrandizement or any of those kind of things. It's just like recognizing what is tantamount to masochism at this point. And again, I find externalizing these things to be really, really helpful, right? So if somebody I cared, if one of my children came to me with this mindset, if my best friend came to me with this mindset and said, you know, God, I fucking suck so hard. I'm trying really hard to be perfect, and I just keep sucking at it. And I you know, I'd be like, whoa, what are you doing? Would you please be a little kinder to yourself? I feel like that's something that would be very useful for you to muse upon, Virgo. Because you are subject to the same kind of rules of engagement as the rest of us. And yet you give yourself no grace for mistakes. You give yourself no grace for needing to take time for things. And then missing the lesson that it is time that will shift perspective on these things. And that it's not necessary for you to sacrifice yourself and everything that you are over and over and over again to reach a point of perfection which realistically isn't actually that desirable, Virgo. And I say that because the perfected state is so far away from most people's not just experience, but imagination, really. That it risks locking you up rigid where you're trying to attempt to flow. But it also excises the possibility of the kind of connection that you want, because you would simply be too far away from everybody else. Now, when we move into September, we've got this Justice card, and that's, you know, for all the reasons that I've laid out, this is very, very welcome. It's Libra energy, like I said, and it is one of the ultimate cards of balancing. In the major arcana, we talk about the Chariot indicating balance, Temperance card indicating balance. To some extent or another, we can also see the Lovers card and the Devil card representing a kind of balance stroke imbalance state because of the symmetry of these cards, right? But the Justice card is finding the lesson. And sometimes the Justice card can talk about, you know, finding purpose and all that kind of thing. It can talk about karma, it can talk about dharma, it can talk about destiny, it can talk about a number of things, right? But we need to note the fact that we've got the Wheel of Fortune and the Justice showing up in the same reading. And when this happens for me, I've got a trifecta of cards: Wheel of Fortune, Judgment, fucking Judgment and Justice, right? You've got Judgment here too. That makes this even more intense and uncomfortable, but it means the breakthrough is profound. This very much explains the Ten of Wands state here, because we know that there are some aspects of karma that are at play here that are attempting to align us with destiny. Now, the Judgment card and the Tower, both being reversed over here, says to me, at least anyway, that the opportunity for breakthrough is repeatedly presenting itself to you. But there is a stuck way in which you are interpreting that energy, and maybe there's a little bit of fear behind there that is certainly driven by a need to be perfect before you embrace it. That means that you are rejecting the lesson over and over again because you think that the lesson is something other than what it actually is. But the Justice card being in the upright says in September it looks like the penny will drop for you. Now, the Eight of Cups is there and it is on its side, and that's quite important. I mean, we've got an eclipse on this card right here anyway, right? But it's energy that's kind of lining itself up. It means that the breakthrough isn't going to lead to some sort of spontaneous new start occurring at some point in the month of September, but that everything that September is pushing you towards recognizing what it is to leave behind and not what you thought you needed to leave behind. And what you think you need to leave behind, which is this imperfect state, is not what you should actually leave behind, which is the need to achieve a perfected state, recognizing that your job is careful, incremental improvement, and that we're not looking for some, big dramatic end destination of things. I met Adam Ellenboss once in a lecture talking about Venus and Virgo. Not that the Venus part is particularly important, but the archetype of Virgo. It's like trying to put on a stage performance, right? And so Virgo will be obsessing about the detail, right? The comfort of the seats, the ease with which the curtain can be pulled, the performance of the people on the stage for sure, but all of the other little bits around it, right? What's the quality of the program? Has it been printed nicely, right? And it's not because of any other reason than at the end of it, you want it to be enjoyed as close to perfect as a thing as can be achieved, right? But the wisdom with all things is that it starts with you first. If you try forcing any aspect of this, you end up in a cycle of self-flagellation, blaming yourself, feeling like a failure, doing all of these, everything that is antithetical to, a comfortable experience of enjoyment and all sorts of things. But here's the other interesting thing, Virgo. I think there is some enormous turn that you are getting ready to make that isn't here yet because you're not quite yet ready to accept it. It's almost like the cornerstone of this new turn, this new experience, would be the acceptance of less than perfection in yourself. And whilst you are unable to accept that, you are unable to fully meet your destiny. Now we've got the Hermit card here, right? And the Hermit card will often talk about internal analysis and all that sort of thing, right? But because the Hermit card represents Virgo, this has got a slightly different meaning to it now. We're talking about conceptualization of identity and stuff like this, right? But on this card, it's less about the archetypal hermit that I'm interested in. It's more about this star in the lamp. Now, whatever the balancing act of September ends up being for you, right? We know that it's staging the next part of your journey. Not quite ready to accept that it's time to move away from a way of being, right? But we're definitely getting closer to that state. The Eight of Cups would be a reclamation for you of your energy and of your power, right? Stop being in an overburdened state when we recognize that actually this pattern that we've been working to for the longest time is not, it's really limiting. It's not giving us anything. The only thing that it's giving us is the certainty that we will keep experiencing that over and over again, right? But the star in this card here, a star that we can never reach, but we can always keep trudging towards. Or maybe we can reach it because the Hermit's put it in the lamp, you know. It's like, can you take something really big? Like the concept of love or service or universal oneness. Can you put the standards to which you hold other people into the lamp? Or like, you know, what you would expect from other people. Can you put it in the lamp and can you internalize your space internally with that? Can you illuminate the space? That's what I meant to say. Because I think everywhere there's a dual standard. And the more you lean into this dual standard, the further and further away the illumination is for you. Now, for some people, I don't think it's any of you lot, right? But for some people out there, the refusal to change the way that they think about these things will see a lot of the ways in which they are with themselves coming out as projections on other people, right? It's well known that the shadow side of Virgo is incessant criticism. And we know that incessant criticism really breaks people down over time. Now imagine that that is what you're doing to yourself. In pursuit of an idea of perfection that is the creation of your current mindset. But if you were to take the energy of the star and put that into the lamp and start looking around inside of you where you see all of these dual standards, you recognize that the big work that is being laid out in front of you here, Virgo, is actually about, can I treat myself as I would others? Can I do that? Can I make space for failure? Can I make space for mistakes? Can I love myself in that moment? Can I treat myself with respect in that moment? There's a sterility in perfection, Virgo. And I don't think you want that. Well, here's the Temperance card. All right. Yeah, I think we're getting to the meat of this. The Queen of Pentacles is self-care, self-love, just understanding the value of self, right? You have an inherent value that exceeds what it is, what perfection you can bring to the world. And loving yourself is recognizing that the mistakes that you make can can be the most powerful thing in your life, right? If you choose to learn from them. The Temperance card is in the upright here. There is we go from this dysregulated and unstable state to something much more settled by the end of September, and something much more willing to move on faith and trust as the Fool is than where you've been recently. And it all comes down to this fundamental point. That you are spending far too much time and emotional effort on where you are failing, rather than understanding that the lesson is how to love yourself despite those. Whatever it is that you think that you're not doing to your full potential. Remember, the lesson is always sideways of where you think it is. And the amount of space and breath that you can exercise from this place, this more balanced place of going, do you know what? It's all right. Like, there's such a fear of rejection here. But its fundamental starting point is the way that you reject yourself over and over and over again. Like, it's never good enough. And we set the bar on how we want the world to treat us by how we treat ourselves. And in your case, Virgo, I think you could do with treating yourself a little bit more nicely. Because if any Virgo friends showed up to come see me with all of this, and they'd be like, whoa, how are you even existing? That sounds like so much hard work. But I think you'd do the same to a friend that came to you. So why are you not doing that for you? This whole month is about just letting go of that and understanding that that does not lead to rejection. That does not lead to catastrophic, cascading failures on your part. Because you matter just as you are, Virgo. And like, you deserve to enjoy life as well. But you have to make space for yourself to be able to do that, and accept life and experiences and yourself in its glorious technicolor imperfection. This is fascinating. I can't believe I've been blubbering on so long. I don't know if I thought I was in the extended or what, but I've been going on for fucking ages. But then, Virgo, it is a really big month for you, so maybe this is what's required. So I'm going to leave it here. I am going to go over to the extended because, believe it or not, I will find more things to say. So if you would like to join me over there, you're very welcome to do so. You can do that on Selfie, like I said at the beginning, or you can do that on Circle. I'd be delighted to see you in either place. But I mean, we're talking about a monumental upgrade of your internal space here this month, Virgo. And the extent to which the upgrade happens is the extent to which you can allow yourself to be perfectly imperfect. Really. Because I would love nothing else than to see you sit more comfortably in your own skin and feel the safety of being authentic, the strength of being authentic rather than being perfect, Right, so away with me. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.